layer or something like that. But I doubt I'm just gonna have it removed. That was an accident, really. But so Dura Matter is that. Pia Matter you kind of have to use your imagination for, because it's basically covering the folds of the brain here. It's like a real thin layer. So if I'm asking for the matter, I'll have like a little question out below it asking which matter is this, which matter is that. So I'll be sure to make it a clear question. So I may actually have this out. It might not be a bad idea. So Dura Matter, Pia Matter covering the folds. The two hemispheres of the brain. Right here, we have all these dissected, like this one. But know that left and right hemisphere. So that would be your left hemisphere there. Right would be right there. Those are divided when it's actually connected by the longitudinal fissure. That I'll probably have on a complete brain like this. I'll probably have like a pin sticking right here asking you what divides the two hemispheres of the brain. The sulci, this is how I pronounce it, I'm not sure if it's right, but the sulci is the folds of the brain, so you see the darker lines basically going throughout it. That's the folds of the brain. That's what is referred to as the sulci. The gyri, so if you were to look at that fleshy part between the folds, that'd be the gyri. What do I call it? The ridges of the tissue is how I have it written down. So folds and the ridges between the folds, sulci and gyri. I have this for the lobes of the brain, so this is probably how I have it identified, or have it on the practical for the lobes of the brain. So I guess a little tricky with the occipital lobe. I'm not totally sure if that's the temporal lobe, but that's how I'm gonna have you identify it. So if you identify it that way, I'll give you credit for it. The frontal lobe, think about anyone in the front, I'm gonna have that pinned as a frontal lobe. The parietal lobe, I'm going to have up here pinned. Again, it gets a little tricky back here, so just a little bit further back, and that'll be the occipital lobe.
Are you going to ask what lobe is this?
Right, so I'll have like a little piece of paper out asking to identify the lobes.
Okay.
The cerebrum, how they have it identified in the book, they just basically have it pointing to that area. So I won't have that mixed up with a question about the lobes. I'll have that separate, but know that the cerebrum is basically mid portion of the brain to the front, or at least this hemisphere, not including the cerebellum, which I'll get to. Corpus callosum, it's this entire, see this kind of stiffer, lighter colored structure here? That's the corpus callosum. That is the lateral ventricle inside of it. The third ventricle, I'm pretty sure I don't have identified out here. I think it exists within the thalamus here, so I'm not going to have you guys.
Isn't it? I think in the book it said like it is the third, or the third is the thalamus. It makes up that whole thing. I think is what it said.
That may be right, but
look it up again.
I'm not going to have it out on the brain.
Okay.
Because even if you're right, that means I'd have like 3 or 4 pins in the same area.
Be ridiculous. A little baby brain.
So forget about the third for a dissection. The fourth ventricle pretty much exists between the medulla oblongata and the brainstem and the cerebellum. So see how it's pinned right there? That's how I'm asking about the fourth ventricle. And again, I'll have the question delineated which ventricle I'm looking for. The thalamus. So I have this pinned as the intermediate mass of the thalamus. I'm not sure if I'm going to ask about many questions in between there. I might just have you identify the thalamus or the intermediate mass.
So that's just under the corpus callosum?
Just under the corpus callosum.
So if you see something there, it's probably thalamus or intermediate mass.
Yeah, I'll probably take either one for an answer as well, because I mean, you move the pin very small amount and it can change it. But know that thalamus or intermediate mass and a pin I have in this area, I'm going to accept. The pineal gland, usually these are missing. I'm pretty sure it's this right here. Usually we end up losing these during the dissection, but that is what I want you to identify as the pineal gland. The hypothalamus I'm not going to worry about. Pituitary gland I'm not going to worry about. Optic chiasma, that right there. So you see it, the structure below it. So if I have that pin, I'm asking about the optic chiasma. Going on to the brainstem, I'm just going to have you identify the pons, the medulla oblongata, and the brainstem. So the pons, see how that little bottom section right there kind of folds back in, and it kind of makes a distinct structure right there. So that's the pons. Medulla oblongata is just above it. And if I have something pinned further below it, I'm asking about the brainstem. So pons, medulla oblongata, and brainstem. Cool. Alright, cerebellum. So what I have pinned right here is the arbor vitae, and it means like tree of life or something to that effect. So if I have a dissected brain out, I have it pinned right there. I'm asking about the arbor vitae.
Okay.
I'll probably have a whole brain to ask about the cerebellum. So that structure back here is the actual cerebellum. It's all
You
mangled.
just have a pin in it and say, what is this?
Right. It's all mangled, but know that that's the cerebellum. And again, the fourth ventricle. If I have it pinned, I'm asking him. I lost it. Well, that's a good way to identify it. So, fourth ventricle. It's hard to really point out, but it pretty much exists between the cerebellum and the medulla oblongata. So, if I don't have this pinned, I don't have that pinned, and I'm asking about a ventricle. Or
So it's the front. If it's the front, it's medulla oblongata. If it's the back, it's arboretum, but whatever.
Brainstem. I'll be asking about the brainstem in the back. Medulla oblongata in this area. Pons right there. See that little
Yeah.
kind of fleshy thing that protrudes right there.
Cool.
Good. So again, I don't have everything covered, but about 75% of it. Going on to the cranial nerves, I'm not going to have this out asking about the cranial nerves. I'll probably have a picture printed out and just have you identify some of them on there.
It's kind of like the one that's in our book.
Pretty much.